Thank you all very, very much.
This concludes the. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. This concludes the press conference.
All right, that was President Joe Biden at the White House with President Vladimir Zelenskyy of Ukraine, where funding for Ukraine is stuck. The president refuses to fund proper border security, so we're at an impasse over the $60 billion that's been requested to fund that war, a war which is now in a stalemate. There's trench warfare. The lines have dug in, and the counteroffensive by the Ukrainians is stuck. So right now, he's asking for more money. Congress is not giving it to him, and he has just promised eventual NATO membership to Ukraine, which seems quite provocative, considering that Russian troops are in that territory. And both President Joe Biden and Zelenskyy says that total victory is the strategy. So it looks like we're not headed towards peace negotiations at all. Judge Jeanine, do you think the president was persuasive in selling the American people in Congress that we need to fund this war in perpetuity?
Well, I don't think that any American wants to fund any war in perpetuity if they don't believe that it affects them. And, you know, I don't know that he made the case that it affects Americans, which is look, the Americans are in favor of democracy and making sure that Putin doesn't invade and all that. But, you know, the idea that he says we will not walk away from Ukraine, we need to win, we're not ready to sit down and engage in peace talks, I mean, which is kind of, you know, inconsistent with the way he's talking about Israel. With Israel, he said, you know, you have to be careful. He's warning of changing public opinion. And the assault in Israel was on October 7th. This is December 10th, 11th, whatever it is. And yet this war has been going on. They started building up the troops in the spring of, I believe it was 2021, and then we started in 2022. Biden doesn't want to go into a campaign for president in the middle of a war. And I don't know that the Americans have the hunger to make sure we stay in it till they win. And, you know, we got to make sure that Ukraine gets into NATO. No, I don't think America's sold on that. But what's interesting, he says, the one or two lines that he talked about our border, the American border, he says, and I'm looking for a bipartisan compromise to solve the border crisis, you know, as opposed to we're going to close the border and we're going to prosecute people who violate the law coming in. So I think he's all over the place. And I think that in the end, he just wants to keep giving money to Ukraine. The Americans are skeptical, as well they should be.
It's a very easy deal to make, Dana. If he wants to make it, he just has to fund border security, and then Republicans will fund the Ukraine war. It seems like there's agreement on that.
Well, what happened is that doing the aid package for Israel and Ukraine was already a difficult thing to do. Getting the border policy money is also a difficult thing to do. The Biden administration, in their wisdom and their strategy, was to combine them as if that would make it easier for it to pass, rather than making it much, much harder, because they make another fundamental miscalculation. They thought if they said, hey, Republicans, we're going to ask for more border money. Cool? And the Republicans said, well, we'll talk about it, but actually we are looking for some policy changes. We want more money. And the Republicans have, all of them, locked arms and said, Red Rover, send it on over. And the Democrats, as far as I've heard, in the negotiations, are not even willing to do basic horse trading. It was the Biden administration who opened this door to get border money in exchange for the aid for Israel and Ukraine. So they have to come to the table, because the Biden administration might have Mayorkas go out and say, oh, the border is closed, no problem. But the American people are watching on their screens every day, especially if you're watching Fox, and perhaps only if you're watching Fox, the numbers of people streaming into this country. If you live in New York, Chicago, Denver, San Francisco, LA, you're hearing about all the migrants that are coming and putting your city into a death spiral. So they added a hard thing to another hard thing, and they're surprised that it's hard. One point on the NATO membership thing, that's been U.S. policy for a long, long time. What would have been huge news is if Biden had said Ukraine NATO membership is off the table. Because if he had said that, that would have been an immediate death blow to Zelenskyy, and he might as well not even go home.
Jessica, what's the problem with the Republican border ask? They just want to change the asylum laws that have been abused for the last 3 years.
So
I think that John Fetterman, and I'm glad that Republicans are now seeing the worth of the man, and he has recovered from his stroke. And guess what? He loves Israel, and he thinks it's okay to talk about a enforced border, is where the Democratic Party is going to end up on this, to say it is not xenophobic, it is not bigoted to talk about what's going on the border. That doesn't mean that you give the other side exactly what they want. It's not just money to reform the asylum system. There are people who don't believe in building a wall in that way, who feel that whatever the system turns into, it will be too cruel, that it will be too limited in terms of who can get in here. But I think yes, that there are people who have legitimate...
To us or the migrants?
To the migrants who are legitimately seeking asylum.
Okay.
We are a country of immigrants, and we're talking about reforming a legal system. I'm not talking about pouring it.
Okay.
I wanted to add, though, it was newly minted Speaker Mike Johnson who talked about attaching the Ukrainian aid and the Israeli aid to each other. And then he also wanted to take cuts to the IRS in order to get money for that. So this isn't all about the Democrats just smushing everything together. Johnson knew that he has a large contingent of Republicans in his caucus who are not into supporting Ukraine anymore. And so he was trying to bring it around that it would support Israel as well, and then threw in this clunker with the IRS thing. Yes, on Dana's NATO point, it's obviously where Zelenskyy wants to go. The odds of them ever getting there in terms of membership, I think, are incredibly limited. They're not going to meet those criteria. But I didn't think that Biden wavered on the Israel issue. Again, he was defensive of Israel's ability to flood the tunnels where we know terrorists hang out, and made it clear that they've said they don't think hostages are there. We don't know for sure, which is why you have to be cautious with it. But his position hasn't changed, and they voted against the ceasefire today at the UN again, one of 10 countries that did it. They have been very strong on the Israel issue.
All right, Greg.
I say let's go another 2 years. It's not our blood. It's not our blood. It's not our boys dying out there. Who cares, right? And you know what? It's going to be a white Christmas for those defense contractors, right? That was the good news I got out of this. This war is putting billions into our country. Yes. Now, if I were a cynical person, I'd think America is a business and the business is war. I think it's really depressing. A lot of people pointed out this is where this was headed. A stalemate. A never-ending stalemate, and it will continue as long as they keep telling you there's progress. Oh, there's progress. That was about as persuasive as a sandpaper jockstrap. That president, it's just embarrassing. And to have the gall to, like, insult people who put America first, you know, if you want to have their border, the Ukraine border, matters more than our border. We have thousands of people dying from drugs coming across the border. We've got gangs from Chile coming in, but that's not important. What's important is their border, a fight between relative countries that we shouldn't even be there. We shouldn't even be there. It's too late to say this war was totally preventable. We knew the red lines, but we wanted to get Putin out. And now, if you question it at all, you're almost being unpatriotic about Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, you're in Putin's pocket if you point out the obvious. You cannot believe any side on this. I'm sorry. You could say one day, and it's true, and everybody at home knows this. One day you hear Russia's losing. The next day Ukraine's winning. Then Ukraine's losing. It goes back and forth. And as long as it goes back and forth, it just keeps going and keep going. We've had enough. We've had enough. Biden says history will judge us harshly. He will judge you harshly.
Okay. More on the 5 coming up.
Yes. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.